And we're live. Welcome. I'm a couple minutes early to do the audio and system check here, making sure all the sound is hunky-dory and all that good stuff. So, yeah, if the screen's a little weird or anything, let me know. That's what I'm trying to check out here. So, my audio sounds good to me. If I'm coming in a little bit quiet on your end, definitely let me know. And do 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 do. Getting some slides ready. Syllabus. Okay, all right, that's it. Class has officially started. So, one more time, let me make sure that my audio works. If I am too quiet or too loud for you, let me know. There's always room to play with that here. If you're not in Discord yet, check out that link in the syllabus over there and get in there. Let's see, what other problems are we experiencing? Video-wise, so we're going to have a couple of different options for how you want your lectures presented here. So first thing I'm going to do, I see almost everybody's in Discord, so I'm just going to go ahead and run the poll in a minute here if somebody's not in there that wants to be. Sorry, you lost your vote. That's how it works. All right, anyway, so two options for how I'm going to present the lectures and stuff this semester. So imagine I have my development environment open, or I've got, I don't know, a slideshow open or something. You know what it looks like. So here are the two options. Number one is you have these little black bars on the sides and my face doesn't cover up too much of the bottom right hand corner. Option two is we go full screen like so, and you lose the bottom right hand corner of the workspace. Usually that's a little bit of the console area, nothing too important down there in terms of Android work, but it can be a little jarring for some people. So again, option one, you get those black bars on the side, but not a lot of the screen cut off. Option two, you get the full screen. So I'm going to put a poll in the chat. All right, cool. That was just me testing my poll bot, really, so it works. Lovely, but still answer it. All right, so this class prefers the second option, actually. Interesting, you guys are the first class so far that has gone heavy into the second option, of those I've asked anyway. So, all right, cool, we'll do that. I will get that beautiful full screen for you guys, and hopefully it doesn't cut off any slides. Normally I try to avoid using that corner anyway, so we'll see if that makes sense. Yes, only the smart people want the big full screen. I don't know. I'm torn on it. I had quite an internal debate about it myself before I decided I should just ask and just go with whatever people want. That's right, the 129 people voted the other way. Maybe I'll re-poll them since my poll bot was broken for that class. Okay, welcome to Mobile Technology, Mobile Application Development. I don't actually remember the official name of this class. It's definitely one of those. Yeah, I also have a fear of blank space in my window. I want to use my whole window. And if you have a fear of blank and unused spaces, get ready to spend the next 16 weeks in soul-crushing anxiety because Android Studio is the pinnacle of using its space ineffectively. If you're familiar with IntelliJ, however, you're going to feel right at home because Android Studio is based on the IntelliJ platform and is pretty much just the skin of IntelliJ. Not a bad one, too, visually. So that's something we'll get into a little bit more later. But first, let's walk through the syllabus. And we'll start where we start with my name. If you haven't had me before, I'm Dr. Gurari. It's pronounced like Ferrari with a G, so Ferrari, Gurari. That's me. Okay, I think I've had almost all of you before, but for those of you who are new, nice to meet you. Glad to have you with me for one of your upper level electives. Now, I want to apologize in advance because I was raised on the old internet, which is primarily designed for trolling, so occasionally I might say something that's a little bit mean or inappropriate, so I just want to apologize in advance for, whatever it is that I say, swearing, or just generally being mean or snippy or a little bit more edgy than maybe you're used to. Again, that's what the internet was for me, but we're going to try to keep it professional here. All be nice to each other and keep those comments as professional as possible. Keep these lectures professional as possible. So someone asked, how come we don't use IntelliJ as a department? When we first started, I gather Eclipse was somewhat more popular. I don't know, it was kind of an arbitrary decision, I think. I personally prefer Eclipse. It's the only software that I prefer in its light skin, because Eclipse's dark skin is terrible. Just because I find Eclipse works better on smaller screens and its performance is a little better for me. It's a little more portable because I used to run Eclipse basically off a flash drive, and I just take it from machine to machine, and that just worked. So Eclipse has always been a just work thing in my experience, whereas IntelliJ, in my experience, demand it to be installed. They're both great platforms. If you prefer IntelliJ, more power to you, and at least I'm trying to do my part to let people know about IntelliJ and let them know that that's an option. I will say, when you get into industry, most workplaces don't mandate that you use a particular IDE, but if they do, they're probably going to mandate that it's Eclipse. In terms of what most workspaces use just culturally, you're going to see about a 50-50 split between Eclipse and IntelliJ, with a tiny piece of market share going to NetBeans. So as long as you've learned on either of those, you're going to be in good shape. Since you already have your Eclipse experience, you're going to get Android Studio here, which again is basically IntelliJ, so you're going to have the best of both worlds. That's going to give you a little bit of an advantage in those job interviews, because as much as people underestimate it, being able to work with your IDE is definitely a skill worth having. All right, in case you're not aware, from the fact that I'm on the internet, this is an online class, but it is a real class. There is going to be a normal amount of work conducive to an upper level elective. You're going to learn things. It's possible to fail at. I think that goes without saying. Lectures are going to be delivered by YouTube Live. Subscribe to the channel you see at the top of the syllabus to get the notifications. So like all YouTubers say, subscribe and hit the bell and whatever. And if I get like 950 more subscriptions, I can monetize my channel, and then I can quit my professorship and become a professional YouTube streamer. So thank you for getting me on my way to that destination. I'm going to post the streams to Discord and also to Canvas announcements for the first few days. After that, I'm only going to post them to Discord, so make sure you're on Discord or that you are following the YouTube announcements, the YouTube notifications, because I'm not going to put them on Canvas after a couple days here. The class chat and communication with one another is going to happen over Discord. More on that later. You can also comment on the YouTube live chat. Just be aware, obviously, that it's public. All these videos are publicly listed, so anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion. And there may be chat trolls, which I'll try to deal with as quickly as possible, but just don't pay attention to them, and they'll slowly go away on their own. Assignments are delivered through Canvas, so watch out for those due dates, but spoiler, there aren't any in this class because you guys didn't fill out the survey fast enough. All right, email me at jgurari@jcu.edu with any questions. I typically answer emails within the same day. I check my email outside of work hours, so that's the best way to contact me outside of office hours, especially in this class where we're going to be dealing with a lot of really complicated code. If you have a question about your work, I encourage you to send me your code or a snippet of your code so that I can read it. I'm going to respond back to you with line numbers, specific comments, snippets of code that you can use. If you just tell me what your problem is, odds are I'm not going to be able to help you unless I can see the context that comes up in. You can also DM me on Discord. I'll generally respond within a few minutes during the workday unless I'm in class, but I usually only sign into the class Discord on weekdays, so if you message me outside of a regular workday, I might not get back to you until the next workday, so email might be a little faster in that case. My office hours this semester are pretty confusing. We got Monday 3 to 3:30, Tuesday 1 to 2, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday 4:45 to 5:45. Trying to prioritize those afternoon and evening hours. If you want to meet with me in the morning, of course, you can always email me to set something up. And now how to access office hours. So you're going to go on Discord, you're going to go into the office hours text chat, and you're going to type something just like I've done on Discord just now. And I'm going to see that you've typed something, and I'm going to DM you in the order that your chats appear. So you're basically just reserving your spot in the line. If there's multiple people waiting for me that day, I'm just going to DM you in the order I see your messages. You can also hang out in the office hours, waiting chat, and talk to one another while you're waiting. Maybe you can answer each other's questions. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be in my physical office this semester, so don't expect me there. More about the Discord. So you're going to need to be on Discord during class time. We're going to use it for all of our different chat functions in this class. You can install Discord on your phone, but I suggest you put it on your PC. And for this class, we're going to be talking to one another. I'm going to be talking to you, so I recommend you get a decent headset. A pretty darn good wired headset is only $40. A crappy one you can get for 10 or 15. I recommend putting in those couple extra bucks for a decent headset if you're going to be remote learning. But that is up to you. You can get a nice fancy wireless one for $75 and up as well. And those are today prices. Sometimes they're even lower. That just happens to be because of the pandemic pricing. But definitely get headphones. Don't try to use your computer speakers to talk to people. It is just terrible all around. It's a bad experience for you. It's a bad experience for everybody else. Don't do it. I'm going to have Discord open during class, but my audio for Discord is muted during class, so I'm only listening on YouTube. So I might be a little bit delayed in responding to your Discord comments, but I will try to get to them as soon as possible. I'm watching the screen at least, and I obviously can't hear you speak. You can ask each other things like, is the homework due, or is there an exam, or anything else on Discord. Your peers will often answer you faster than I can. There's a general chat where anything goes. DM me to ask questions about the class semi-anonymously. I'm probably going to know who you are, although you don't necessarily have to use your real name on Discord. If I like your question, I might snip parts of it and answer it for everybody. You can also, of course, ask questions in the general chat, and I'll answer them, and then everybody can see the answer. Because if you're confused, then everybody else probably is too. And of course, you can network, discuss class content with your peers, and post and consume dank memes on Discord. Just be aware that I don't moderate the Discord channels, and I don't take any responsibility for the spicy content that you put there. However, please be civil and try to keep your edginess to a minimum. Gotta be professional here. General class rules: don't spam chat. If you have a lot of background noise, a bunch of yelling babies or barking dogs, please use push to talk. Don't use the voice activated microphone. You can change that in your Discord settings. You are free to have side conversations in Discord during lectures. I encourage it. You can join chat channels or join private messages with each other and talk while I'm talking. I don't mind at all. If you need to join late or leave early or step out, virtually obviously, then just do it. Do it silently. You don't have to DM me and let me know that you're heading out. You can email me if you want to know what you missed, but of course you can always just watch the lecture since they are pre-recorded. Missing an exam will require advance notice, but this class doesn't have any exams, so don't worry about it. Alright, so what is this course? This is going to be an advanced programming course, so you're expected to be basically a third or fourth year CS student. Pretty good grasp of object-oriented programming. Pretty good grasp of just how to write basic simple programs to do basic simple things. And maybe this is the first class you've got where you're going to write a serious program that does a real task. That's fine, but you should be pretty comfortable with at least all of the contents that you learned in 228, which is now known as 129. And if you're not at least taking 328 now, then you know, you should be. You should be at least taking now, and preferably you should be finished with it, because some of those concepts, or at least those Java skills, are going to come into play. So somebody asked, are you required to be in a voice chat or on Discord during class? So you don't have to be in voice, like speaking to anybody during the lecture. You can only ask questions in chat at this time, although if there's enough demand for it, I might come up with a way for you guys to be able to ask your questions verbally while we're live streaming as well. It's a little bit challenging because people have to pop in. Somebody also asked if it's fine to use Eclipse. Unfortunately, Android Studio is the only game in town if you're developing on Android, while it was once possible to develop on other platforms, and it might still be technically possible in theory. It will be way too difficult to be worth it, whereas Android Studio is a 2-click download. Getting anything else to actually compile an Android app is going to be really, really challenging, so I do not encourage it. So you will have to use Android Studio, basically. Now, when we get to the part where you have to design your own app, you can also opt to use Unity or Visual Studio with Xamarin, I think it's pronounced, instead. So if you opt for one of those platforms, you can avoid Android Studio as well. What are we going to learn in this class? Well, it's going to be a grab bag of a lot of things because the mobile domain is very large, and I want to give you guys the kinds of things that you're probably interested in. I don't know why everybody signed up for this class. That's why we had kind of the course survey. I want to know what sorts of apps everyone's interested in. Maybe you're just interested in mobile in general. But hopefully you've all filled out the survey. If you haven't already, please go over and do it. It only takes a minute. The course survey on Canvas. It's not too late. I'll pull up the results here in like 10 or 15 minutes so you can see what everybody else was interested in. But basically, we're going to be learning a few of the foundations for all apps. We're going to be learning activities, views, various Android nuances that are shared across pretty much any mobile development. We're going to learn how to make a presentable and functional graphical user interface in Android. We're going to learn how to read and write from the memory so you can have some persistent information across your app, how to send notifications, which is obviously a very important part of most apps, how to access the network, which is relatively advanced, and most of you probably won't be too interested in that, but some of you are going to want some networked features to your application, and some other common tricks that are shared across many different apps. And then by the end of this course, you will build one functional, useful Android application that's worthy of upload to the Google Play Store or F-Droid or one of these different repositories where people upload their apps. It doesn't have to make it to the top of the store. It doesn't have to be very good, but it has to be functional and good enough that you would be willing to put it up there and that it actually works. So that's the goal in this class, to upload something to the store, make a real mobile app. And the reason that I've decided to structure this course with that goal in mind is because this is an upper level elective. Most of you are going to be graduating within a year or two. And if you don't already have good points on your resume, this is one of those things that's great to have, because an app on the Play Store, an app on F-Droid, the person who's interviewing you can pull it up instantly. You can show it to them right on your phone. You can show them the GitHub repo. This is one of those things that's excellent to add to your portfolio and have available to you for your job hunting. So I encourage you to take it seriously, build something nice. You don't necessarily have to work in mobile development, but it definitely proves your Java chops to an extent if you've published a functioning Android app to the ecosystem. So, I would encourage you to do it. Do you have to, by the end of this course, actually upload it to the Play Store? No. I'm not going to make you. There's a $25 fee to upload an app to the Play Store. That's to register your developer account. Helps cut down on spam. It's a very modest fee. It's one time, $25, not annual or anything. It's a very easy process to upload the app to the Play Store once it's done. So I encourage you to do it. But if you really don't want to, you don't have to. It just has to be worthy of that kind of thing. All right, so how does this course work then? I didn't get a lot of feedback on the survey early on, so I've already kind of structured this. I might be open to change it a little bit if the survey leans completely in one direction. But the first few weeks of this course are going to be like a crash course in Android development. So for the first 3 weeks, I'm going to show you all the basics that you need in order to get started. And because I've seen that most people have an interest in seeing a little bit of Android native versus cross-platform development, it's going to be a little bit in Android Studio, and then I'm going to do a little bit in Unity as well, and show you how to start an app in both of those platforms. And then you'll come up with an idea of an application that you want to build, and you're going to be working on that for the rest of the semester. Now, if you have a shared vision with some of your other classmates, there's only about 10 of you in this course, by the way. You can team up with your other classmates, or you can opt to work on the application yourself. If you do decide to form a team, then there's a little bit more of an expectation for what you turn up with. You know, I'll expect you to create something a little bit more interesting than if you were working alone. And you should come up with an idea where the work can be easily distributed among different people. So if you come up with something like, let's say, like a to-do list that's local only and doesn't have any network or anything, that's going to be very hard to divvy up the work. I guess you can have one person do the front end and one person do the back end, but there's not much to do on the back end side. So if you come up with something to do as a team, you should have an idea for how you're going to divvy it up a little bit. And then for the rest of the semester, after you've come up with your idea, I don't have any lectures planned specifically, so I only have lectures planned basically for the first 3 weeks. For the rest of the semester, I'm going to come up with lectures depending on what you are interested in. So someone asked, they didn't know about the survey. That's fine. The survey is on Canvas. It's under quizzes. It's also under Canvas in your announcements. There should be a link to it there somewhere, but just go to Canvas and go to quizzes to see the survey. And again, not too late. Fill it out now. It's short. Still interested in your responses. If the responses are all completely one way, I'll be happy to change some of this, add some more lectures, add some more weekly homeworks in lieu of the final project, but we will still be overall making that final project regardless. So if nobody has any particular questions, like let's say that there's a group and they are struggling to come up with a way to save their data over the network, then I will walk through different ways that you can do that, hosting your own database, using Firebase. There's tons of different options. The reason I'm doing it like this, where I don't have a scheduled lecture plan, is because the Android ecosystem, the mobile ecosystem, are huge, and there's thousands of different things you can learn. It really depends on what kind of application that you want to write, and so rather than sticking you with information that's probably not going to be interesting, I'm going to try to tailor it to the kinds of things that you are trying to do. So after you've come up with your ideas, I'll come up with some things that I think will be shared across most of your ideas, but you can always ask me to discuss something specific, and I'll try to discuss that specific thing. We're only going to do lectures 1 day a week for the most part, probably. So on one of the days, Tuesday or Thursday, I'll do a lecture. On the other day, I will sit in Discord and talk to the different teams about how their project is going. So on that day, you should all be in voice chat. I'll make a few channels for that purpose, and every team should sit in a channel. I'll go around and talk to you and see how you're doing, see what kind of help you need. And that's how I'll get an idea of what sort of stuff we should be covering in the lectures after that. And then I'll also help you individually if you need any help writing your application or doing some parts of your application. Okay, so lectures 1 day a week after the crash course period, and the other day you will be in Discord, voice chat, talking to one another, talking to me, etc. Now, even if you decide to work alone, I encourage you to, during those days where you have the opportunity to chat, sit and talk with others and brainstorm and exchange ideas, because it's going to be interesting. I think you're going to be able to be a lot more productive if you exchange ideas that way. Someone said, I know we're developing with Android, and I don't expect it to change, but what should I do if I want to learn about developing for iPhone? Are the principles the same? So the reason that I don't want to do iOS development are There's a few. So number one, you need a Mac to develop on iOS. Now, you need an Android phone to complete this class. That's going to be on the next slide here. But an Android phone is less than $100. A Mac is a lot more than $100. So it's not practical for us to do iOS development just because we can't provide you a Mac, and we can't reasonably ask people to buy a Mac just to do the class. I don't have a particular problem with people doing iOS development. If you want to do iOS development, you can, but the skills don't really overlap. And so I can't really help you much. I also don't have a Mac at home, so I can't really even debug your stuff or help you with it at all. And so for that reason, unless you really, really want to do it, I would strongly recommend not doing iOS. If you must develop for iPhone, then instead what you should do is create a cross-platform application in Unity. That's almost certainly going to be a game because there's not much else you can make in Unity. You could make something that's not a game, but most likely it will be a game if you want to develop for iOS. Now, continuing on the negatives, Unity doesn't run very well on Mac. You need a relatively expensive MacBook, a relatively expensive iMac to run Unity, something that's like 5 years old or newer, and probably one of the higher end models to run it comfortably. So you're looking at a Mac that probably costs you $1,500 or more to run Unity comfortably. It will likely work on Android as well, just without making any changes, but you're going to need to verify that it works on Android, because I'm going to grade you on Android, because again, I don't have an iPhone to build to, and I don't have a Mac to build with. So I'm going to expect that your app, even if you designed it primarily for iPhone, it should still also run on Android, which adds a little bit more difficulty to what you're doing. iOS development requires a significantly larger fee to get into. Apple charges, I think, $100 to join the developer program. That's what you need to be a part of in order to upload apps to the Apple Store, and that's an annual fee, so you'd have to pay $100 per year if you want to stay in the Apple Store. Apple also has a lot stricter guidelines on what kind of apps they allow. There's a longer review process, so you probably won't make it to the store within this semester. That's fine. If you submit it to the store, I'll obviously be pretty thrilled about that. And then Apple, it's just a little harder to get your app accepted in general. They're very picky. Now, the biggest downside to developing on iOS specifically, if you opt not to do Unity, if you want to do iOS development in their native application, which is Xcode, is besides that Mac specificness, you're going to have to use the programming language Swift. And Swift is very unlike Java. It's not like anything that we've learned in our program. It's a cool language. It has a lot of neat features. I've worked with it a little bit. I like it. It's like Objective-C, which it basically endeavors to replace. But again, it's not like anything we've learned. It's really quite difficult to pick up as a Java programmer because it's quite different. It's closer, I would say, to JavaScript or Rust than it is to Java, especially in terms of its syntax. And the worst part about Swift, despite it being a good language, is that Swift and Xcode and that whole ecosystem on iPhone have almost no documentation. It's basically blank, and so you're going to have a really hard time developing for iPhone just because there are no resources. I can't help you, and then basically you're stuck going to YouTube tutorials or something. There are not that many indie iOS developers for that reason. So if you want to go with iPhone, keep all of that in mind. Someone said there's the first class, there might be more Android users than iPhone users. I actually doubt that. I think most of the class is still iPhone users. But again, you need an Android phone for this class. It doesn't matter if it's your daily driver, if it's your main phone. You do need one. Learning outcomes. You can read these at your leisure. CS program goals, you can read those at your leisure too. So on to the course material here. Hardware-wise, you're going to need an Android phone running OS 7.0 or newer. This is a very low requirement. Again, you can get these for under $100 new. I recommend buying them directly from manufacturers like ZTE, which makes excellent low-cost phones. Motorola. Samsung has a few, although Samsung's low-cost phones are very bad, so I don't really recommend Samsung's low-cost phones. You're better off going with a low-cost vendor like, again, ZTE, Motorola. There's also like HTC, LG. There are many different companies Let's do a poll. I agree. What's your daily driver? Is it an iPhone or an Android phone? Oh man, bunch of iPhone people. You'll find that iOS development is tougher. Someone said BlackBerry. BlackBerry's mostly run on Android now. BlackBerry does make low-cost devices too. I don't know if they'll fall in that sub-$100 range, but they might. You can also go to one of those phone repair places or other electronic stores, find one with a broken screen. You might be able to get it for free, get it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever. Tons of people have junk phones lying around. Again, it doesn't have to be a good one, it doesn't have to perform well. That is a lot of iPhone users for an Android development class, guys. That is a lot of iPhone users. Let's see how many people have an iPhone. I like the trolling one another in chat over people's choice of iPhone as their phone. Once you buy an iPhone, you really can't escape because all your friends are now in iMessage and all your data is now on iCloud. So if you leave the ecosystem, there's a pretty big penalty. You can barely take your photos with you. Only recently has there been a reasonable way to move over to Android, and getting your messages to send to your friends between Apple and Android is pretty terrible. As anybody who's ever tried to send pictures over SMS between the two ecosystems knows, it sucks. But again, Android, not Apple, low-cost phones are fine. I know you Apple people are used to, I have to pay $700 to get something that's even remotely usable. That's not the case at all in Android. The very best phones in the Android environment, I mean, you can get top-end flagship hardware for $600 to $800. Anything more than that is just, you're buying a fancy glass plate or something with a fancy logo on the back of it. The phones in the $100 to $300 range are quite usable. Sub-$100 phones are not good, but they're okay. Yeah, let me rephrase that. I accidentally said have an iPhone to develop with. That would be perfect. I'm also going to do a poll and ask how many people have a Mac, because again, both Unity and Android Studio are very heavy applications, and sorry as I am to say it to you Mac folks, you pay a premium for your hardware, and you've got to be a real moneybags to buy like a developer grade Mac. Not anymore with the new M1 chips, but in the previous generations, Macs that could handle Android Studio or Unity came at quite a premium. Alright, so almost everybody has an Android phone. If you don't, again, get one. They're cheap. If you have a spare, if you have one and you have a spare, and you're willing to offer it to lend to somebody this semester, you can set that up in Discord if you're generous. I had some spares, but I think they're all on loan right now. I might pick up some more at the beginning of the semester, but since I'm not going to be on campus, I don't know how I'd share them with you. Alright, we don't have too many Mac users. Those of you who are Mac users, just try Android Studio, try Unity, install it, open it, see how long it takes to open, see how much it revs up your system fans, make sure you're able to handle it relatively early. Another thing that I'm going to say is really important in terms of hardware this semester. I've already mentioned headphones already, but another peripheral that you're going to need is a second monitor or a large monitor. Now, Android Studio's development space is like this big on a laptop screen. So if you're trying to do Android Studio on a 14-incher, you're going to have a real bad time, I guarantee it. So make sure you've got at least, let's say like a 19 or 20-inch monitor, a minimum, or just a second monitor where you can do your console and whatnot. Another thing I didn't mention that's difficult to do with Mac is getting your phone to talk to it. So especially your Android development device, the low-cost ones can be even harder to set up. So make sure that your phone can talk to it. We're going to go over that before we let out today. Software-wise, you're obviously going to need Android Studio or Unity or Visual Studio with Xamarin, which is the hardest of the three options. Definitely don't recommend that one as much. Now you can choose to develop your application in a cross-platform environment like Unity, or you can make it Android native in Android Studio. Textbooks, we don't have any in this class, but I will offer you some resources that you can use for learning Kotlin and the different various tricks that you're going to need on Android. There's lots and lots and lots of Android textbooks out there that you can look at. The problem, as I'm going to go into when we talk about Android soon, is that they get obsolete practically instantly. I don't know why I even mentioned the CSVM, because it doesn't work for this class, but I felt like I should mention it in case you were planning to rely on it. The reason it's not going to work is fairly simple. You're going to have to connect your phone to your computer in order to load your app onto it. It's going to be a no-go with the VM, so sorry. You're going to have to use your local computer. Now, if you're sitting and thinking, I don't have a laptop that can handle it, and I obviously can't get one because laptops that can handle it are mad expensive, then let me know, and I will try to get you a loaner from ITS. We've got some loaner laptops available with i5s, 8 gigs of RAM. They should be more than good enough to handle Android Studio and such. So again, if you need hardware, if you need a laptop, let me know. And if you're having trouble securing an Android phone, you can let me know too, and I'll see what I can do. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do much for you on the Android front. So you don't have any homework in this class. You're just going to have your major projects. As for the major project, here are some important deadlines to think about. I'm going to have more on the calendar in the syllabus, so check that out. You're going to have to finalize the idea for your app and the group that's going to be working on it by 2/18, so February 18th. Now, you can, if you decide that your group needs to split up after that, split it up with no penalty. And you might want to do that even if you're working well with your group. So you might decide that you and another person have an idea that begins in a very similar place, and then it's going to sort of branch out. You can work with that person for the beginning part of the idea and then branch out later. That's perfectly fine. So you don't have to stay with the team that you start with. You can fork your project off if you end up having a creative difference or you just want to break away. I love this discussion in Discord, by the way. Great job, guys. Making fun of the Mac people and the Mac people making fun of you. Dirty Windows peasants that just couldn't afford a Mac. So you should be basically done with your app by 4/22, which is, you'll see, not the end of the semester. We have quite a few weeks after that. So at that the point, then you should be finished with all the functionality and everything. We'll spend the rest of the semester getting your app publication ready by dealing with all the little nuances that Google demands in order to get their stuff in the Play Store. So that will take time. Of course, polishing out your bugs and different things can happen during that point, and then there will be a final presentation that you'll have to make. So just don't expect to finish on the last day of finals week. Expect to be finished with your actual app production by 4/22. For the final score, those checkpoints that are going to go by the way, those are going to be worth 20% of your final score in this class. There will also be a peer review at certain checkpoints where you're going to have to look at other people's app and see how it's going, and you have to give them feedback. Your feedback is worth the credit, not the score. You're not going to grade them or anything. I want you to give them good feedback. If you give them good feedback, you get your whole 5%. If you just say it's good and submit, then I'm going to give you a 0 on it because you're not being helpful. So you just need to be constructive and let people know what they need to do. Then your final score on the assignment is 75% of the total, and that's going to be based on functionality, usefulness, technical soundness, documentation, and final presentation, which I've addressed in more detail on the syllabus. I can pull that up for a second here just so we can talk about that. So functionality is basically that it runs and does what it's supposed to do. Usefulness is going to be that it actually is applicable to some person. Somebody will actually want it. And if you made a game, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to make, that's fine. It just has to be kind of fun, or at least somebody's impression of fun, not necessarily mine, but it has to not be the paint drying game adventure or something. You gotta have an idea that's at least useful to somebody or enjoyable to somebody. Even if it's just yourself, even if you think you're going to use it in the future, even that will give you a pretty good score there. It can be a very, very specific app for a purpose that really only you need it for, and that's fine. Technical soundness is a big part of your grade. That's basically satisfied completely if you manage to upload your application to the App Store and it runs on people's phones. If you can just show me that it's running on some phones in the Play Store console, I'll be happy to give you full credit here. Otherwise, I'll try to evaluate it for publication readiness as best I can. And then the runtime of it plays into it a little bit. Obviously, if your app just doesn't run on low-end phones at all, or it causes the phone to heat up to the temperature of the sun, that might count a little bit against you. But mostly, it just has to run on a variety of devices. You've got to leave some documentation. Don't neglect your documentation as you go. It's 10% of your final grade. Make sure there is a class header on every class. Make sure there's method headers on every method. Make sure you document your development process well as you go. I encourage you to keep a change log. I like to keep change logs at the top of every class. You can do it however you want. If your application requires some kind of tutorial, it better be really simple. It better be like 5 pictures or something. Better not be a 25-page training manual. And 10% of your grade is the final presentation, which is going to be like a slideshow or a pre-recording or just a demo of your app. More details on that as we get closer to it. You can earn a bonus if you make your app more accessible to people who have aberrant physiology, blindness, missing a limb, whatever. If you can show me how you went out of your way to make your app accessible to people who have strange physiology or abnormal physiology, then I will give you some extra credit. That doesn't mean that your app, which already is in all black and white, supports colorblind people because it never had any color to begin with. No, that doesn't count. And of course, your app with no sound doesn't have support for the deaf. That doesn't count either. You have to go out of your way. You can get another bonus 5% for making a proper handoff to the next team, so treating this like an ongoing project that's going to have a development team beyond it. If you opt to do this, you can also pass this project off, and perhaps I will use it in a future senior design if you want. I'll just make them continue it or something. Who knows what we can do with it. But you don't have to actually be willing to pass it off to write the handoff. You can want to keep it for yourself and still write a handoff as if you were passing it off. Somebody commented on Snapchat and other applications, popular Android applications that run painfully poorly. And this is part of the problem with the Android ecosystem. There are lots of AAA great applications that run like garbage. I don't know if Snapchat specifically is one of them because I'm not 14 years old, but lots of applications run really, really badly on Android and basically on iOS as well. iOS is definitely no slouch when it comes to crappy apps. Somebody mentioned OnlyFans. No, there are no fans in your Android phone. And yes, I get the reference. I'm choosing to ignore it. The quizzes, there are none. Labs, there are none. Tests, there are none. Final exam, there's none. You're not graded for your attendance, but you're expected to be signed into Discord during class time. You're definitely expected to attend the voice chat sessions at least once a week, possibly for both days a week, depending on whether I have something to lecture or not. If you're repeatedly absent during those sessions, it's going to count against you even more if you fail to deliver something. On the other hand, if you're absent and you still deliver something, I will bug you and reach out and see if you're doing okay. But if you're continuously delivering quality products, I guess I don't particularly care if you choose to do it at another time, but you definitely should attend class and sit in Discord and chat with one another. Your final grade, again, is 20% those project checkpoints, 5% you giving a constructive peer review during those checkpoints to others, and then 75% the finished product that you deliver. So the bulk of your grade is the finished product. Make sure that the finished product is good, essentially. If you guys can hook me up with Raid Shadow Legends or another e-sponsor, I'll be happy to do it. People asking what sponsor I have in chat. I don't think I have any. Maybe I'll reach out to those people who send you food or something. Yes, or a VPN, one of the 19 VPNs. Check the calendar for the approximate timing of topics. Topics are subject to move around, but of course the important dates and exam dates will stay the same. In this class, that means that the dates that your checkpoints are due will stay the same. So pay attention to the calendar for the days your checkpoints are due. If you're a little bit late, you can let me know, and I can give you an extension on those. It's not that big a deal, but obviously then you're bleeding into your time for the next checkpoint. You should try to put your best foot forward in those checkpoints. I'm not grading them too strenuously. It's just going to be a lighter version of what I'm looking at in the final app, but you should make sure that everything compiles and runs and something displays. Leave comments in the code where things are ongoing. You should be leaving yourself to-dos and things as you go as well to help you keep track of your development process. A difference from my calendar versus some of your others is that April 7th and 8th, I think that's a Wednesday and a Thursday following the Easter break. For this class, those are going to be independent study days. We're not going to meet. I'll be on Discord probably to talk to you if you want to talk about your app, but we're not going to have a lecture or anything. So if you want to take an extra week for your vacation or whatever, I don't really see the point in making everybody come back for one day, since we're only going to have that Thursday there for this class. Now, this class has a very unique approach to cheating and plagiarism. It's the only class I've done this in, so we'll see how this works out. And pay attention, this is different. So, unlike the other classes where you can't work together, obviously, in this class I want you to work together because Android development is extremely painful, way more painful than any other kind that you've run into yet. So, I want you guys, even as an entire class, not just as teams, to share code and snippets of code and assets and help with other teams over the course of this course. And anything that you get from outside your team, you can use, you can implement it, but you must give the other person that you got it from credit. So if you use code that you borrowed from another team or from somebody else, then just give them @author credit in the method and class headers wherever appropriate. If there are multiple authors on the class because you've edited, you can reflect that. Just make sure that anytime you use somebody else's code, you give them authorship credit. Otherwise, I'll give you some pretty significant penalties. You have to make sure you credit everybody that you use. You can copy me, of course. Same rules apply. Just @jgarari for whatever it is you copy of mine. Perfectly fine. And the reason that I want you to track this authorship primarily is because when I look at your final project, it just has to be approximately 75% work from your team. So if you basically built your project by Frankensteining code together from other people, even if it works well, I'm not going to give you much credit for it because that's not very interesting. You're going to have to do a substantial part of the development yourself. I just don't want you to all reinvent the wheel at the same time here because, again, Android development is tough, and it's more about finding the resource that tells you how to do something than really being clever and reasoning your way through it. And of course, don't use any copyrighted or pirated materials in your work. I don't want anybody to get their app published to the Play Store only for it to get taken down for copyright violation or whatever. Make sure everything you use is open for your use, especially if you decide to rely on other libraries. In Android, there is no built-in library for even the most basic things. So things like a color picker or a QR reader, those all require an external library. Make sure you use one that's available freely. And because this class is online and the lectures are online and you're talking to one another, I decided to just draw up this very simple license for the purpose of having it. So any code that I provide you during this course can be used for any purpose, including commercial purposes, free of charge, as long as your gross revenue does not exceed $100,000 a year. Thereafter, a fee of 2% of gross revenue made by the application that utilized the code. No warranty given or implied. You may redistribute the code freely and make changes as you see fit. Any code you share with me during this course, aside from submissions to me, are subject to the same agreement as is code that you share with one another. And unless otherwise specified by another agreement, teams agree to an even split of all revenue and expenses. When a team is broken up, the above agreement applies instead. So you can remember, always fork off your team if you have a different vision for where the application should go from that point. Imagine an app goes big. Well, I specifically put $100,000 because I don't anticipate anybody will reach that threshold. But it's also the threshold used by other platforms like Unity, so I copied it a little bit from there too. It's always possible to make a ton of money off an app, I will tell you. The app market is a bit like a lottery. Everybody remembers Flappy Bird, right? Everybody knows how complicated Flappy Bird is. You guys are all going to be able to make Flappy Bird by week 3, and you'll probably be done with it in a week, and it'll probably be better than the original Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird made like millions before it was taken down by its developer because he thought it got too big for what it was. And the Android market is a lot like that. You never know what's going to hit it big. So there are markets like, let's say, QR code scanners or, I don't know, light detectors or really simple applications, flashlights. There are markets like that where there are thousands of apps in that particular category. And every once in a while, the algorithm gods decide to promote one in particular, and it takes off, and you make a ton of money for no reason. I'm not telling you that that's likely. The odds of that happening are lower than the odds of you winning the lottery. So if that's what you're going for, you should go buy scratch-off tickets instead, but it's always possible. It's always possible. You can read the disability, discrimination, and bias statements at your leisure. So big picture summary, be respectful to your classmates, get Discord, make friends, because you might want to develop with others, especially during this early period. Make some friends so you can have a team to work with, unless you really want to do something alone. That's fine too, but it's obviously more fun to work with a team. Ask questions, be diligent, don't fall behind. Definitely ask questions on anything you're interested in developing. I've been doing Android development a long time, and I still don't know how to do half of it, but I will gladly figure it out for you. Email me, see me if you're stuck or if you have an issue, and practice working well within our little organization here. Be generous, answer other people's questions, share code, and attribute it fairly, and others will share theirs with you, and it'll make the whole development process easier overall. Okay, so before we move on, let's look at Android Studio. Obviously, if you search Android Studio, it's going to be the first thing that comes up. You have your Android Studio download link right there at the top for Windows. What about for the poor Mac people? They have to go over to the download more page, and then they probably have to follow some extra requirements because it's not so easy. So Mac people, I don't know what you do. I only know that you have your own download over here. First thing you're going to notice is that compared to any other IDE, Android Studio is a beast. It requires 900 megabytes to download, and then when it unpacks, it's going to unpack into gigabytes. So make sure you've got some room in your hard drive for Android Studio and all of its wonderful dependencies. Android Studio, when you go through the installation process, I think, because I've already gotten it, but when you go through the installation process, it's going to offer you at various points if you want to download the system tools for a particular version. This is going to be where a lot of the file space that Android Studio takes up plays in. So whatever phone you have, you're going to want to download the tools for that version. You're also going to want to download the tools for the very latest version of Android. So just tick the box that's the furthest down. It should be the one that's the default anyway. Anytime you want to build for a phone with a different version, so anytime you plug in, let's say you've got 8 and 9 downloaded, and you plug in a phone that's 10. It's going to make you download the tools for 10. That's going to be about a gigabyte more of download space. So if you don't want to end up with like 10 gigabytes of different system tools and versions, make sure that you download the latest and then whichever one you're going to need for your phone. The easiest way to do that is during the installation process. Just let it download the latest system tool only, so check the very last box in all the versions that it offers you. It should be the one that's checked by default again. And then when you go to run your application on your phone, it's going to tell you that you don't have the correct version. You're going to be prompted to install the new version of the system tools, and it will update it automatically for you. So just download the latest during this install process here. You're going to need the latest no matter what. The other thing that Android Studio is going to offer you during the install process is the system images and the emulator for different phones. So Android Studio allows you to use this emulated phone for development. The problem is that the emulated phone can't do a lot of the stuff that we would find interesting to actually test. Like, how does an emulated device receive notifications? Well, I guess you open it up and leave it open for a minute. It does not represent real-world use. Things never work out on the physical device the way they work out on the emulated device. So I discourage any use of the emulator. I don't even install it anymore. I consider it a total piece of junk. If you want to install it and see what your app will run on some of these devices, they offer things like Samsung devices, Pixels, all these different high-end devices. It can be useful for previewing what your app will look like on different screens, different hardware. But again, it's not an accurate representation. It doesn't guarantee that your app is going to run right on a physical device. So I would encourage you to do all of your testing on your actual physical device, not in the emulator. And if you want to install the emulator, go ahead, but I wouldn't even bother. So uncheck those emulator boxes during the installation process if you don't want them. The emulator images are very big. Every device that you want is going to be like 2-3 gigabytes, I think, plus there's some more overhead for the emulator manager. So it's going to take up a lot of space if you want any reasonable number of emulators. Okay, next, before we move on to more Android Studio detail, you're going to want to set up your phone. I realize some of you don't have an Android phone yet, so I'm going to put off the bulk of this until later. But I want you who do have an Android phone to connect it to Android Studio as soon as you can. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Settings, and you're going to go down to System, wherever that may be for you. And if you don't see developer options there, then you need to unlock it. There's a little secret process that you need to do in order to unlock the developer options. Now, these settings have moved around and changed names over time, so I don't know the exact settings for your devices, but you're going to go to something like About Phone, Phone Information, something like that. And then you're going to tap it's called Build Number, Build Version, Build Something, or it might be called Android number, Android version, Android something. You can just tap all the different ones until you find the right one. Yes, I know it's not very scientific, but it works. And when you know you're tapping the right one, when it pops up a little notification on the bottom, a toast message that says you are so many steps away from becoming a developer. Because when you tap that, the build number or whatever it is, 10 times, it will unlock developer mode in your phone's options. So again, you go to your settings, you go to your system settings, and then you go to About Your Phone, or whatever the equivalent is, and then you find something that's called Build Number or similar, and you tap that 10 times. You'll know you did the right thing because a message will pop up at the bottom that says you are now a developer. At that point, you are almost ready to plug your phone into your computer. You're going to have to navigate to your developer options wherever they may be, and you're going to turn on USB debugging. That's going to be under debugging. Once you've unlocked developer options, if your operating system supports the ability to search settings, you can also just search for USB and find USB debugging there. You can turn off verify apps over USB as well. It can make your builds a little bit faster, and it doesn't matter, but it is a security risk, so that's completely up to you. Depending on what you want to do, at some point Android Studio might block you with that, but it's pretty rare for that to happen. If you want to be able to see your phone's files and such, you're also going to have to change USB configuration from charging to media transfer protocol. That's going to be to look into folders. We're going to get into that in more detail later, but that's always a buggy and terrible thing, and it will reset your setting later anyway. I think every time you reboot your phone, it'll reset it too. So don't worry too much about that. Some of you might be interested in writing an application for rooted devices, because in my opinion, anybody who doesn't have a rooted Android phone is just running a child's phone. If you're interested in developing for rooted Android devices, that is, Android devices that have root access to the operating system, definitely let me know. I can help walk you through how to root your particular device. Rooting obviously unlocks a great deal of other features. It also unlocks a great deal of system calls and such that you'll be able to use during Android development that are not normally accessible. So one more time, in order to get your Android phone connected to Android Studio, you've got to go to System, About Phone or the equivalent, tap Build Number or the equivalent about 10 times, and then once you've got your developer settings unlocked, you're going to go to the developer settings and you're going to turn on USB debugging. Now you can plug your phone into your computer, plug it into your phone, the other end of the cable into your phone, and Android Studio should be able to read your device. Now, let me demonstrate how terrible Android Studio is. I have a very good computer. Okay, Ryzen 7, fairly new, lots of RAM, all this good stuff, alright? Dun 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 dun. We're back. Okay, great. That's how long it takes to open Android Studio on a good computer. If you don't have a good computer, it's going to take a very, very, very long time to open Android Studio. And everything inside is slow. If you have less than 8 gigs of RAM, Android Studio is borderline unusable. I recommend 16. That is installed on, this is installed on a PCIe 4 M.2 SSD, one of the fastest on the market, and that is still how long it takes to boot up. That is just how long it takes. So it is what it is. Now I just plugged my phone into my computer. I'm using my daily driver right now, and you can see that as I did that, this box up at the top, this microscopic box changed to the name of my device. So that means that my phone was plugged in. Awesome. If you did decide to install the different emulators, those are going to be under AVD Manager, and this is going to be how you decide whether you're going to run on the physical phone or on one of the emulators. So we're not going to get too much into the development in the last 15 minutes here, but I did want everybody to at least get started on that Android Studio download. Again, it's a big file. You know, you got to do all this stuff with your phone. So by next week, I hope that everybody at least gives installing Android Studio a try and also attempts to connect their phone to it. So try to get to this point where you have Android Studio installed and it senses your phone. Another way to know that it has sensed your phone is it'll start just chattering random crap about all your different phones' debugging processes. This is just par for the course in Android Studio too. And if you're having a little panic attack right now looking at this, don't worry, you're not alone. Android Studio has a lot of options. Look at all this stuff on the screen. It's everywhere. The only real advantage is that the dark mode skin in Android is excellent. At least in my opinion, it looks very nice. Let me see. How do you make the font bigger? Well, we'll figure out fonts and everything in terms of what you guys need to see next time. But obviously, I'm not going to try to instruct you with this font. Okay, before we head out, I'm going to look at the results of that survey. And I'll ask you a couple more questions based on what I see. So hopefully everyone's filled out the tech survey. I'm going to try not to hover over anything to de-anonymize you, but I don't think it particularly matters. All right, here's where your peers lined up in terms of what they were interested in. So most people are interested in, if they picked anything at all, puzzle and turn-based gaming is the largest category, and then there's a lot of interest, it looks like, in communication and productivity type apps, with the least interest in location-based things. This is good because Maps is a very difficult and expensive API to work with, so it's probably best to avoid it if possible. So we probably won't learn how to access the Maps API unless there's significant interest. Android users can be proud that Google Maps is much better than Apple Maps. However, Android users can be ashamed that Google Maps has only gotten worse in the last 5 years, as Apple Maps has gotten better. Those of you who said you wanted a grab bag of everything, I'm going to ask this question again in a few weeks after we've finished going over some of the basics. So hopefully by then you've got, maybe after we've seen a little bit of all of this, a better idea of what categories you're more interested in. So just keep it in mind as we go. Now, this question, most people said that they wanted to see a little bit of both in terms of Android native and cross-platform development. So I am going to, again, do a little bit in Android Studio. Then we're going to pivot to doing development in Unity, which you iPhone people should be able to do directly on your iPhone. I encourage you to try it on both. We probably won't do anything on Xamarin unless there's a lot of interest, because it's a difficult platform to work with. Most people prefer Discord, lovely. Most people prefer it to be graded normally. Suckers. You could have gotten free A's, all of you. Just kidding. Yeah, you've seen the grading policy. I'll just handle that normally. We got about 5 people still who report that they don't have an Android device, so let me know if getting one is a real problem for you. Otherwise, just try to pick one up for $50 or whatever. Again, the only requirement is it runs Android 7.0 or newer. Obviously, if you get something that's real cheap and then you try to use it to develop real-time gaming, you might have a bad time. On the other hand, I usually test my apps on the cheapest devices possible, because most people still have cheap devices, and you want your app to run on cheap devices. The preference for weekly homework versus large project was pretty much even, so we're just going to go with large project because that's how I've set it up already. Now I'm going to do a little poll. Well, actually, I'll just ask it as a question. What is the world's largest mobile manufacturer? I can't spell manufacturer. So what do you guys think is the world's largest mobile manufacturer? I'll type a poll as we go. So someone's saying Huawei or Huawei. We all think it's Huawei? 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 Huawei is technically the correct pronunciation if you're interested. I've been buying Huawei devices since way before anybody knew how to pronounce them in the United States, and I can attest that they are excellent for the price that you pay. So if you can secure one, they are rather hard to get in America these days. I definitely encourage it. They are quite good. Especially their high-end models, which have been relatively affordable for some time compared to flagships from other companies. I don't see any other answers besides Huawei and Apple. Alright, so you can pick 3 here. What do you think are the top 3 in the world? And I'll pull up the answer. Top 3 largest manufacturers. For those of you that wonder, Apple absolutely destroys everybody else in terms of profit, if that's any kind of giveaway to you. Apple is the king of the profit in the mobile market. All right, let's go back and, whoops, ignore that. Let's go back and see some of these answers. All right, good. Somebody got their device connected to Android Studio. That's great. So that's what you want to see. You want to see the device's name in there. You can even try to build Hello World to it or something. So most people picked Samsung and Apple as top 3s. Almost everybody picked Huawei, which is correct. Huawei is the largest mobile manufacturer in the world. Or the second largest, actually. The largest mobile manufacturer in the world is still Samsung in terms of units sold. Samsung is very big indeed, especially in that Asian market where they come from. In the Korean market, they're dominant. A lot of people live there, but they also dominate the low-cost market in places all around Asia. That's why Samsung has so many low-cost phones. They're A series in that $100 range. But they're losing a lot of ground to upcomer Huawei, coming from China, who again makes very good phones for the price that you pay for it and performs far better, I would say, at that low end of the market. Now, third place, most people would say Apple. Most people place Apple in the top 3. They're actually no longer even in the top 3. Depending on the chart you look at, you're going to see either Oppo or Xiaomi in the top 3. But definitely not Apple at this point. So Oppo, very unavailable in the United States, never really had a lot of availability in the United States. I think I've only had one of their devices, and it was fine, I guess, but not a lot. I don't know a lot about Oppo. Then you have Apple. Apple's still by far the leader in terms of profit made off of their mobile sales because they have one of the highest margins in the industry. They charge a lot for their devices, and they have no low-cost devices, which is why they don't tend to outsell the others in raw device sales. And then Xiaomi, which I mentioned earlier, sometimes considered as 3. They sell phones you might know, the Mi and the Redmi. And I believe they were recently banned from the United States as well for working with the Chinese military or something or another. It's already very difficult to get Xiaomi phones in the United States. They're also very good. They're known primarily for their high-end cameras, which are available at a relatively low cost. The other major Chinese manufacturer you should be aware of is ZTE. ZTE makes probably the best phones in the sub $100 range. They also make some of the best phones at the mid-end. They were one of the first of the Chinese manufacturers to be blackballed from the United States. And then TCL, which is the Creative Life, which has gone through a series of different buyouts and now owns different IPs of different devices, Alcatel or BlackBerry or something. TCL has acquired different names, but is now building phones under their own brand. You might recognize them from the television market too. TCL is primarily a screens manufacturer and makes relatively good mid-end phones, sort of flagship killers, but only very recently have they started to do that, so I don't know that they're necessarily as good as they say. Okay, any other questions about devices or anything before we sign off? Again, spend the next week, if you don't have one already, acquiring your Android device, hopefully downloading that massive bloat that is Android Studio, and getting your phone connected to your PC. If you have any questions or problems at either point in that process, let me know, and I will do my best to help you out. Do not be surprised when your Android phone suddenly stops talking to Android Studio in the middle of the semester and you have to reinstall things. It happens. It happens. I also don't recommend updating Android Studio unless you absolutely have to, because it's one of those situations where that can happen. And it also seems to build up the amount of hard drive space it takes as updates move on. It's a very interesting platform. All right, then one final poll before we sign off. Android is now developed in Kotlin. Kotlin is the official language of Android development from this point forward. So Java is going to be discontinued eventually. Kotlin actually compiles into JVM, into basically Java code before it executes on the computer. The details you don't need to know, but essentially they're interchangeable. So it's possible that Google will keep Java alive for a long time. However, if you don't follow tech news, Google and Oracle, who runs Java, have been in a legal spat for a long time, and it's perfectly possible that Google decides to spite Oracle by just removing Java from Android Studio altogether. And either way, Kotlin is the official language, so documentation and such going forward will all be in Kotlin. That transition only happened about a year ago, and they announced it maybe a year before that. So most of the information that you'll find on the internet, guides and tutorials and such, is still in Java. But most of the information that you'll find in Java is outdated and doesn't work anymore. So maybe about 50% of it, maybe 75% of it still works. The rest of it doesn't work anymore because it's too old. So now you see there are a lot of trade-offs. I'm going to ask you, would you rather learn how to develop in Kotlin, Java, or would you rather see both when we do the Android development part? And people who vote show me both, you need to commit to something in your lives. Why does everybody always vote for show me both? You realize it's going to be twice as much work now. All right, I will show you both. They are very easily interchanged. There are even tools that let you convert Java to Kotlin and vice versa. But more on that next week, I guess. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you have good luck with that setup, and we're going to get started on Tuesday with some slideshows and then jump into Android Studio after that. So, see you next week.